Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm Matt, hi.
And we're from HireWindow, and today we're talking about company fit and how do you know if a company is right for you. So Matt, first of all, why is it important to even consider that when applying for a job rather than just looking at the role itself?
Very, very simple and basic answer to that, which is ultimately the fit that you have with the environment that you're working in, the culture of the organisation, the values and the behaviours, and the mission of that organisation is ultimately going to be much more important to your success in a role than the job description itself. So you could probably find 2 or 3 people in your own network or your friends who've gone for a job that looks perfect on paper in terms of the day-to-day responsibilities, but they've ended up hating the place they work and ultimately not succeeding. And I'm sure if you asked enough friends and family kind of about a job they've taken where it didn't look right for them on paper, but they just jived so well with the organisation's culture that they were a success anyway. There's plenty of those examples out there as well. So the reason it's important is because it is the single most important factor in the success of any career move is what we kind of nebulously call culture fit.
And before you apply for the job, when you're researching the company, you see a job advert, what are those things that you should consider at that point?
I think there's a few things to talk about here. So first of all, accept you're never going to really understand the culture of an organisation truly until you work in it, and you have to accept some level of uncertainty when you take on a career move, and that's why they can be difficult things to do to make a career move, because there is a level of risk attached to it because you never be 100% certain. There's all of the online research you can do to get a good picture. That can be Glassdoor, that can be Google searching, looking at the company in the news, LinkedIn feed, just to understand what they are saying about themselves, and on stuff like Glassdoor, what ex-employees are saying about them as well. Talk to people who work there, talk to people who used to work there. And then the one kind of final, I guess, key indicator of an organisation's culture is what their leadership is like. So it's all very well and good being an organisation that says they promote diversity and inclusion, for example. But if then you find that the 3 directors that you meet during the course of the interview process are all not very diverse, let's put it that way, you might know that they're not maybe practicing what they preach, or they're still on a journey, and that can be the same with any kind of environmental or cultural kind of aspect about an organisation. Leaders will tend to reflect the real culture of the business, because culture tends to stem from the top, behaviours tend to stem from the top. So if you're trying to make a judgment about the environment that you might be heading into, it's probably wise to form a lot of that decision around what you observe from the most senior people that you meet during the recruitment process.
And once you've applied and you've got an interview and you're visiting that company, what are some of the things that you should look out for, or maybe some of the questions you should ask to understand if you would be a good fit for that company?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very personal question, because I think the best way to kind of approach it is to drill down into the culture factors, as it were, that you've most been drawn to in a job advert or a career site. So if, for example, you have been drawn towards the culture of an organisation because they shout about flexible working and being family friendly, or however they choose to phrase it, and then during the interview process a potential manager or someone on your team kind of recoils at the thought of you leaving at 3 o'clock 2 days a week and making it that time elsewhere, you know that they might just be paying lip service to that. So for me, it comes down to actually picking out the few things that you understand about the culture of the organisation that are most important to you, resonate most with you, and then making sure your understanding of that is really, really sound, and just asking questions to probe around that.
You mentioned earlier that you won't truly know an organisation, that you're a good fit with an organisation until you get into the job.
Yeah.
If you get into a job and actually think this isn't for me, what would your advice be to someone in that situation?
For me, it's always going to be about open dialogue. I think the first thing I would say is don't panic, because it can take a few months to sort of bed into a role. It's not always an instant fit. You don't always hit the ground running, even if ultimately you might really succeed in the environment. So give yourself a little bit of time to just bed in. If things don't kind of turn around the way that you were hoping after a few months, I would always just encourage open dialogue, whether it's with your manager, whether it's with someone else on your team, a trusted colleague from elsewhere, someone from sort of people or human resources. I just think that facing these things sort of pretty much head on and saying, look, I thought it was going to be like this, it really doesn't feel that way, I'm not sure it's going to work out for me if it stays like this, kind of thing. Ultimately, that's, I think, going to be much more helpful to both parties than it is kind of slogging it out for a couple of years in somewhere that you sort of hate working, because everyone's going to know, your manager's going to know you're not enjoying it, you're obviously going to be miserable doing what you're doing, and ultimately you won't succeed there. So I just think open dialogue and try and get the problem out there and potentially fixed as soon as possible.
Well, we hope you found that video useful. If you're looking for a STEM grad job or internship, make sure you sign up to HireWindow.com.
Thanks, guys.